Thank you, Amy. And good afternoon, everybody. Two things to remind you of. May I remind everyone present that the meeting will be recorded via the internet and this recording archived for future viewing. And if you're not speaking, please can you mute? Thank you. Which takes us straight on to agenda item 2. Which is the minutes of the meeting held on 13th of October 2020. Would you like to do it page by page, or do you want me to do it en bloc? Anybody?
I'll move the minutes as they are.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 3. Do we have any declarations of interest today? No, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4, which is a social service training arrangement.
Chairman, can I? Sorry to interrupt. Can I just check? Have we had any apologies from Councillor Owen Griffiths?
Owen was
Everybody else is with us.
No.
I've just logged in. Sorry.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Fantastic.
Sorry.
Great.
Snuck
That's
in
lovely. That's okay. I couldn't see you. Okay. Thank you, Owen. Welcome.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item 4, social services training arrangements. This was at Cabinet on the 2nd of November 2020. Lance, can you
thank you,
update us on this? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This report obviously is a reference from Cabinet, so it's in relation to a decision that Cabinet made on the 2nd of November, and I suppose it's one of these things that is very important to us within our social services teams in the Vale of Glamorgan, but I suppose I can understand that for the rest of the council, it probably doesn't seem like such a big issue. But we have been in a regional sort of training workforce arrangement with Cardiff for the last 3 years. And that was a decision that was originally made by Cabinet that we would go into that. And this report was for Cabinet to make a decision as to whether that would continue or not. But both partners very aware of a number of local positive improvements that have been made as a result, really, of COVID-19, some of the different ways of working that we've had. So we're working very closely with our providers currently, and so we felt that actually a regional team wasn't helping with that, and so we felt that it was better to move back to the local arrangements that we once had three years ago. The report is here. You see issues in there in terms of how we get our funding from Social Care Wales. There wouldn't be any change to that. We would get our proportion. Social Care Wales are very clear what that is. So there isn't really any change in terms of that financially, or the match funding that the council provides as well. So I suppose really, you know, in summary, this will move back to a locally provided training unit that we will provide through our organisational development team in human resources, but obviously working very closely with ourselves through a joint management arrangement, and that we will do that from when the agreement would have naturally come to an end in 3 years' time. So rather than choosing to extend it, we're taking that point to end it. So I'm happy to answer any questions or to elaborate further as you would like.
Does anybody have any questions? Rachel, if you have questions, you'll have to shout because we can't see you. Anybody? Ben, do you have questions?
It was just to clarify something Lance just said. To be clear, it's 3 years from when that arrangement started, not 3 years from now. So it would be April that we'd be starting this new arrangement of this local provision. That's all. I think it's a really good idea. Otherwise, I wouldn't put it forward to Cabinet.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Lance on that subject? No, moving on. Thank you. Agenda item 5. I can't read Welsh. Where's the English? The report of the Director of Social Services, Annual Social Services Representations and Complaints Report. Lance?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I suppose at this point I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Natasha James, who I'm not sure all Scrutiny Committee members will have met before, but Natasha is our Operational Manager for Safeguarding, who also covers complaints and social services representation. So I feared that I may not be able to answer some of your detailed questions, so I asked Natasha to come along in case there was anything that I couldn't deal with, but I did say I would introduce the report. This is a routine report for us in that we bring it every year. I know we had a lot of this information not so long ago with the director's report, but this again provides more detail, and it was one of the reports that the Scrutiny Committee requested last time. I mean, I suppose in summary, it's probably worth noting that social services operates to a different set of complaints procedures than the rest of the council. It's set out for us in terms of what we have to do. So when you see quite often the corporate complaints report, our figures aren't represented in there because we have a different set of mechanisms that we have to use, and that's called a guide to handling complaints and representations. So essentially what happens is complaints are dealt with, if they possibly can be, at an inquiry stage. So when somebody first contacts us, failing that, if we can't deal with it straight away, then it can become a proper complaint, I suppose, a stage 1 complaint, where usually our team managers will look at those to determine, see what's been going on, and then go back to the individual with the intention clearly of resolving the issue for them. Where that doesn't result in everybody being happy with what's happened, we are able to do a stage 2, and I suppose some of the figures in terms of the timing, you'll see some people will have gone straight to stage 2 because people have that right to request it, but stage 2 is an independent investigation, so we have to commission those, and somebody from outside the local authority will look at what we've done and make some determinations. And then what usually happens is that goes into a large report, and we write to them. I can't think of a time when we haven't fully accepted the independent investigators' recommendations, but that's what we usually do, and we send that then to that individual. If the individual isn't happy, then they can of course go to the Public Service Ombudsman, and so I suppose when you look at the figures within the attached report within the appendix, it's important to bear that in mind, that there are all those different stages, and people can come in skipping various certain stages. So sometimes if the numbers don't look like they completely add up, that's why. So as I've said, at Appendix 1, there is the detail of the number of complaints we've had, and we've tried to group them, I suppose, also in terms of the types of complaints we've had. I think it's also important to say that we get a lot of compliments as well, and again, I suppose compliments and praise are just as important in terms of guiding us in terms of what we do and how we operate. And I think, you know, particularly although this report relates to the last financial year, clearly the impact of COVID-19 has as you would expect, impacted on our complaints response. But you know, we've continued to provide face-to-face meetings and have used virtual platforms wherever possible to do that. So again, I'm happy to elaborate or answer any questions, or duck and pass those questions to Natasha, who may be slightly better placed than me to do them, given she's almost certainly going to have more awareness of the detail of those.
Thank you. You're very welcome, Natasha. Nice to see the face behind the name at last. Anybody got any questions for Natasha? Anybody? No?
I have
Well,
one, Janice. Sorry, I am raising my hand, but you can't see me.
I can't see you, no. Yes, Rachel?
Hello, Natasha. Nice to see you again. Well,
Hi.
virtually. I'm just wondering, when you sent out the independent reviews for investigation, did this take any longer due to all the restrictions and anything else? And did it have any negative impact on the outcomes?
It definitely took longer, I think, because just coordinating at the very beginning, I would say it has taken longer because of coordinating. Sometimes some people still have paper files for things and people need to read things. So, but we have managed to get around that. I wouldn't say in terms of the outcomes of the investigations or the independent investigations, it's had any impact on outcomes negatively at all. We've continued. We did have a period right at the very beginning where we needed to just halt and think about how we did it. But then after that period, we did then continue. And I think what this has enabled us to do is to look at a wider pool of investigators.
Yes, totally understand that. Yeah. My intention was I don't want this to impact negatively on the service that you're providing. So that was the reason for the question, and that's explained it perfectly. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else got any questions for Natasha? Neil?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Natasha, I did indicate the other day that I might be asking these questions. First of all, why did all the stage 2 complaints go out of timescale in the last financial year? I mean, we set a timescale, and it's very, and as Lance just explained, these are being investigated outside stage 2 do go to independent adjudicators. But it is alarming that all of them seem to have gone beyond the timescale. Under section 9 lessons learned, it seems that the majority of the complaints, or a large proportion of the complaints, perhaps it's better to say, relate to the timeliness and due process, and that people complaining that they don't understand what they're being told, they don't understand the language we're using. And I've always been a great advocate of using plain English rather than corporate speak and or jargon. And it isn't a great leap to go back to using words of 2 syllables rather than words of 6, which is what we tend to do within the service. And then my final point, really, get them all out of the way, is with the compliments that Lance again referred to, just making sure that these are communicated to everybody, all the staff, because it is important for them to hear. And I'm not sure who's that shouting, but someone's got their mic on. Okay, those are the 3 main points that I wanted to make. Thanks, Natasha.
Thank you, Neil. Natasha, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, so I'll take them individually. So the first one, absolutely acknowledge that all of the stage 2s have gone out to the prescribed timescale. There's a number of reasons for that. I think sometimes we appoint an independent investigator, and the first point that they have to do is make contact with the complainant to set out the terms of what they're looking to investigate and the context, and that has to be agreed. There can be delays with that process in complainants responding in a timely way. There has been a delay in relation to the capacity of the independent investigators and them having quite a few on the go at the time, and us holding them to account for that. So I think why we highlighted it particularly in this report is to make it clear that this is an area this year that we are focusing on in terms of regular communication with the independent investigators to try and keep them to timescales as well. So the point 2 about words and language, absolutely. I think across all areas of our service, across all of our communication, it's a subject that we talk about regularly, about using plain language that can be simple and understood, and we advocate that message where possible and in our own communications. Lessons learned are shared back to our service. So, that's a particular theme now for to be shared back into our service about the language that we're using when dealing with citizens or writing reports. So absolutely take that point. And the third point around compliments, again, yes, that is going back into the service through newsletter style and the lessons learned, so that people are aware that we don't only get complaints, that we get a lot of compliments as well. And people, you know, are grateful and also appreciative of the work that people are doing.
Thank you, Natasha. Councillor John Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure if my question's for Natasha, Lance, or whoever, but I don't know whether anybody else has had the phone call yet, but I had a phone call yesterday from a gentleman who was making allegations about serious things that went on quite a few years ago with his son, who was supposedly imprisoned by the council. And I won't go into detail. I told him I wasn't prepared to discuss it with him because I didn't know the background and whatever, so I just fobbed him off with that. But I don't know whether anyone can shed any light on it for us, because I'm sure if you haven't had a phone call, he told me he was going to ring everybody, so I'm sure other people will be getting them as well. So I just thought I'd better raise the point.
Well, I haven't had a phone call this time, but this has been ongoing for many, many years. I don't know how much we can say, Lance.
For anybody who calls you, I would direct them to our service and to us, and we will pick it up and respond.
This is a gentleman that just doesn't want help. He just, I don't know what he wants, to be honest, but you know, when I've responded to him, I've asked him to get in touch with social services, who are more than willing to talk to him and help him with his things that he needs to address.
Lance?
And he just doesn't want to.
Lance,
yes,
can I just check, is there a particular section that you would direct that gentleman to? Just in case there is any further inquiries for our members and or any members of the public are watching this recording?
I mean, I don't think we should
Neil.
be talking about any individual really in a public forum, really. So
No.
I think.
So is that the main council number?
Yes, they come through on
Yeah.
through to 200-700-1. That's absolutely fine. But
Okay.
I'm sure most individuals who've had repeated contact with us will have our numbers, and they're more than welcome to contact
I don't
us.
think it's the case if he didn't know who to contact. He just wanted to, he wanted to speak to me about it. I wasn't prepared to speak to him. I just thought I ought to flag it up, because if other people haven't had the phone call, they're probably going to get one at some stage.
Please just direct
Thank you, John.
anybody to us. That's absolutely fine.
Neil?
Yeah, he called me as well, and I ended up speaking with him. Everything I suggested in terms of people who could help him, he's not my ward. I pointed that out and said that he should be talking to his own councillors. And any other suggestions I made, it was very much he'd spoken to this, he'd spoken to that, he'd spoken to his AM, he'd spoken to his MP, who didn't want to know, he'd spoken to police, the commissioner, everything he'd spoken to who didn't want to know, apparently. And as John said, I didn't know anything about the case either, and said, look, there's nothing I can do apart from advise you to talk to your local councillors who should be able to deal with it. And he wasn't very happy with that either. So I'm not sure where to go with that.
Thank you for that, Neil. Ben?
Yeah, Chair, thank you. I'd ask us to move on from this point in this forum. Obviously, it's recorded, everyone can view this. There have been individuals in the past where we have sent a message out to all councillors advising them of repeated contact and how to contact the council. I understand this is somebody who has had that email round to councillors previously. If it's helpful, we can send the same thing round again to all members to advise of those routes. Perhaps I can go via Amy or directly out from social services. But otherwise, I think if it's okay, can we move on from that? Thanks.
Yeah, it's very sad, and we will move on. Agenda items 6 and 7. I don't have anything urgent as chairman. So thank you for your attendance and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you all very much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Chair. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.